Hello there. This is Trevor Crow. The show is Trevor and Friends. It is the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. So happy Turkey Day to everybody. Hello, hello.
Gobble, gobble.
I love it. Sitting next to me in the studio is Max Cisneros. He has been deeply involved with his community in Stanford, and I want him to explain what he's doing and why it's so important. I'm so glad to have you on the show
I'm
today,
glad
Max.
to be here. Thank you, Trevor. I appreciate this. As you mentioned, I'm Max Cisneros, and I kind of like been useful not just for the migrant community, but the LGBTQ community for the last 10 years, specifically working around service provider work, where we're talking about families of single mothers who are undocumented, talking about HIV positive migrants, talking about asylum seekers in the country. And earlier this year, since our last conversation, we have been, and by we I mean Stanford Norwalk United with Immigrants, which is basically a coalition of activists, local orgs, grassroots, nonprofits, and even public functionaries, folks that have been elected, got together and did what they could. We just saw the amount of disappearances and kidnappings that were happening around the Stanford courthouse. And currently in Norwalk, the Norwalk courthouse is closed. So all the cases of Norwalk and Stanford are being addressed at the Stanford courthouse. And so when we started seeing disappearances, kidnappings, arrests, however you want to put it, these are terrible sightings to see. They really shake you at your core. And we thought to ourselves, we can't just watch this happen. We have to do something. And then we began to do things.
So, Max, how did you initially get involved? So you're watching these disappearances happen. Did you start reaching out to friends? How did you really managed to pull a bunch of people together from a broad coalition? How did you do that?
So, like I said, for those 10 years, I was very useful for different communities at different capacities. But when this came down, two conversations were happening, one in Norwalk and one in Stanford. And the one in Norwalk was a common council member, was speaking with a local activist, a domestic workers alliance group lead. And they were just kind of exchanging all these photos and videos of things that were happening. We weren't sure back then. We didn't have any mechanism to disseminate this information. So folks were just exchanging videos and pictures of things that they didn't necessarily know what they were looking at. And the other conversation was between me and the Interfaith Council, the Interfaith Council in, I believe, Stanford. And so they started asking themselves, we want to do court accompaniment, accompanying migrants who have court dates. These are migrants that have been traffic stopped or they have orders of having to go to, classes, whether it's substance abuse, whether it's domestic violence, something of that nature. And so, these are allegations. So they still have to see a judge in order to get to get a sentence. So we were noticing the court cases in particular. I'll throw some statistics out there. Between the first 3 months of this fellow's administration, I will say that the 10% was a number of undocumented immigrants that were being apprehended who had court cases that were not adjudicated. That is to say, they weren't found guilty or innocent. 10% during the first 3 months of this dude's administration. During the months of June, July, and August, that number jumped to 42%.
42% of the undocumented people, human beings who were taken off the streets,
right,
they weren't in front of a judge.
No.
They had alleged, or in some cases they were just following the rules.
Correct. Yes.
They were showing up to the courthouse to do what they were supposed to do for their immigration papers or status.
Right. Not just that, just to seek justice, to address the issue that they were being accused of. And part of the reason why I assume that Immigration Customs Enforcement were kind of making these operations more widely was because they're deportable. Once they don't show up for their court date and you're undocumented, you are immediately deportable. So there is a mechanism in which in the background we were noticing. So they had a tactic. Yeah, right.
So these undocumented individuals, if they didn't actually see the judge, are now deportable. Even though they showed up to go to see a judge, they got snatched prior to that moment.
It's very easy to criminalize folks that are alleged. Again, these are alleged. These are charges. They're not necessarily sentenced or anything. So due process is something that we all deserve. It's one of the bedrocks of American judicial prudence. So it's just sad to see that these folks aren't getting it.
So I'm just going to roll back the tape a little bit because even in my discussions upcoming to this show, some of the people I discussed this week, I keep hearing this illegal aliens. Talk to me about that language around human beings because I find it very offensive and I get outraged. But Max, tell us you deal with that? What do you say?
So I often hear this too, where folks are just kind of leaning, far be it from me to like, go to authority for language, a sense of
Hmm.
authority from language. But honestly, I genuinely think that this feeling of self-deportation, this feeling of instilling fear, this
Mm-hmm.
feeling of making folks feel uncomfortable, and to the point of unsafe, like this gets to the language. A lot of us use language in a way that can affirm folks, even celebrate them. It
Hmm.
could also cause fear.
So there's really the desire is to instill terror
Right.
and hope that some of these people will leave. And by the way, seen some people disappeared who have been here for decades,
Right. Correct.
built businesses,
Correct.
had families, paid
Right.
taxes.
Right.
Exactly. Lisa Hannock, our executive producer, has a lot of strong
Woo
feelings
woo.
about this too. So thank you, Lisa. So so
Yeah, these are folks that are like following, not just following the rules, they're also like upholding whole communities. These are people that
mm,
they have children who are citizens, by the way. They take care of those children. In many cases, they take care of other folks' children.
mm.
And they're not just, these are folks that are mowing the lawns, cleaning the offices, cleaning the homes. They uphold a lot of about our society that many folks take for granted, frankly.
When we had Attorney General Tong on, he gave us a great quote. He said,
Mhm.
"America runs on two things: Duncan and undocumented
Yeah,
immigrants,
Mhm.
basically."
there's a
Mhm.
lot to it. You'll find
And
both of them around the same spot.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's true.
It's very true. So, it's kind of switching back into how do your how are you helping these people? What is your community doing? What are the steps that you're taking to help these people? What's going on here?
Going back to how I became involved, because it answers the question, is that there are amazing, kind-hearted, full of ambition and desire to want to impact this community in a positive way, but they don't speak Spanish.
Uh,
And there are a lot of folks who need support and help and need kind of just, even if it's just emotional
mhm,
support, and they don't speak English. And so who I am is the bridge. I am the bridge between the clergy, the ministry,
mm,
who want to accompany the migrants, and the migrants who are requesting the support. So that's been my role.
mm, mm,
So my role has been kind of just recruiting other folks to take my role. So I'm not doing it
mhm.
so much. But also, sorry, what was your question again?
I
My
was
bad.
just saying I love the idea of being the bridge between the interfaith community, those who really want to help, who may not be able to speak Spanish, and genuinely, there are a lot of people out there like myself and certainly Lisa who are watching this and with just it's terrorizing for me, but just I can't imagine living through that.
Well, here's the thing. I think just knowing that other folks see them
Mm, mhm,
is huge. The amount of migrants that come up to me and say, Yo no puedo hablar, I can't speak English, but please let them know that I thank them.
mm,
That I didn't think anybody cared about us. I didn't think anybody cared about what was happening to us.
mm,
So that's like often I say, you don't need to speak Spanish in order to be useful to these folks. You don't need to be a lawyer in order to be useful to these folks. Just having somebody by your side, and we've noticed at the courthouse when there's no power like an older woman with a collar. Not to use that term, but I'm just saying
mhm,
when they are accompanied with a migrant, that
mhm.
ICE agent will think again about, about tackling that person, about apprehending that person. Even the prosecutor will think again about like throwing the book at him. So go ahead.
No, just to let everyone know, we have links up on our socials for how you can donate, volunteer, support.
Get involved. Anybody who's tuning in right now, the show is Trevor and Friends. I am Trevor Crow. I'm sitting with Max Cisneros, who is an activist in the community between Stanford, Norwalk, and
United with Immigrants. It's mostly
United with
Fairfield County, but
mostly
Snewy. You call it Snewy just to be a little cutesy about
very cute.
it.
But doing really, really profound and important work right now, where we have many, many human beings right now literally terrorized. Their family, their friends are getting disappeared
Right,
in our country, which is
right,
still just shocking to me that that could ever happen.
right.
And you're doing this hard work. Now, tell me, because again, as I've had some conversations with friends of mine who are like, but ICE is supposed to be taking away the worst, the criminals, the people doing really bad things. I don't think any of us have a problem with that. Is that happening? I mean, you give us this 42% number
Right,
are not
right.
criminals, but what's happening? Are they actually taking away some people who
Th-
shouldn't be here and doing terrible things?
This is interesting because at the begin, even migrants themselves, often they say themselves, "Well, I'm safe. Well, I have my process in place. Well, I have my A number. Well, I'm not accused of any of any wrongdoing," and they end up they end up calling us 2 or 3 weeks later. Hey, my cousin. Hey, my mother. Hey, my. And so it's sad to see. But to answer your question, that may have been the case. That may have been the case earlier this year. Remember, I mentioned the 10% number.
Right.
So that may have been the case. But what we're seeing is folks are taking, if they go to a home and they're looking for one person, they'll take everybody else in that home that they think. And a lot of this is unfortunate to say. I don't want to use the term racial profiling, but it's just hard to imagine how they're choosing who to take without putting that dynamic in your head.
Well, we did have a shadow docket case, and Justice Kavanaugh said it was okay
Right.
to basically racially
Good.
profile. So, yes, here in the United States, if you are brown or black skin,
Right.
you could be and speak Spanish.
Right. This is
You could
part
be
of
snatched.
that's
off
what
the
makes
street.
this. That's what the operations that we are confronting. That's what makes this kind of like part of a multi-government level, multi-agency, nationwide crackdown on black and brown communities that have been symbolized by the military takeover of Washington D.C. and of L.A. So, and speaking about the ways in which folks can advocate in their own capacity, they could write letters to the editor, write letters to the legislator, write letters to the governor, write letters to their state senators and to their federal delegates, because I have some fear around there's a lot of fear to go around, but specifically around the community defense efforts that we're putting together. When I saw the National Guard be called up in the Texas National Guard being sent to Illinois, which is on its face is just kind of insane to think about. But when I look at that and I think about the things that we are doing to impact this community positively, I get worried about us.
Oh, my goodness.
This past special session, this 2-day special session that they had in Hartford,
Yes.
one of the things that they were considering that unfortunately
Yeah.
was not approved was ensuring that the Connecticut National Guard was not used for ICE immigration enforcement.
And we didn't pass that?
It didn't pass, unfortunately.
Oh, my goodness.
It's encouraging to see that folks are talking about this more than prior. It's encouraging to see that that for the next session that's coming up, the ground has been laid in order to make a stronger case for this.
Incredibly important.
Yeah, really. So that's why I mention it, so folks are aware. If there's anything I can do, this is the message I want to bring to folks. Just because you don't speak Spanish, just because you're not a lawyer, even if you are at home, even if you're home and you don't want to leave your home, there are digital observers. There are ways that folks can disseminate information that you are receiving from the folks on the ground. There is a role for everyone to play in this. So I want everyone I would like everyone to instill a belief that they have a role to play in this process too.
I think that's incredibly important and also very hopeful.
Yeah.
Really hopeful. I also want to point out that in these sweeps, ICE has been picking up U.S. citizens
Correct.
without due process. So anybody out there who thinks that they're really safe because you happen to be a U.S. citizen,
Very strong point.
right?
Right. Yeah, it has happened.
Nope. You know what? You can get disappeared.
Right. That has happened. And here in the state of Connecticut, there's a few cases I could speak about. But what I'll say is that nationwide, it is a growing trend, and it's unfortunate because if you just heard about one incident of a U.S. citizen, you would think that they would put effort. All right, this shouldn't happen.
Right.
It's going in the opposite direction.
Right.
So
Is this because of quotas that ICE has to meet, or
there is this kind of a few articles have been written about Stephen Miller in the White House, who's kind of like putting forward this 3,000 a day number, which explains why we're seeing this heavy-handed collateral grab, kind of like even citizens kind of. It explains. I hope that's not, but what's really kind of frustrating is that folks who are doing community defense work, they have to follow every rule, and I would
Right.
hope and expect they do, but unfortunately on the other side, they're not following the rules.
Or they're stretching them.
Right. They're
To
seeing as far as they
every,
could.
like,
They could. Yeah,
possibly
exactly.
get
No,
away
you're right,
with.
and it's a bit frustrating in the work.
So, can you tell us maybe? And again, I'm not sure you have whomever you have permission to discuss some of their cases specifically, so those who are listening right now can really hear what it is like to deal with this.
Yeah, this is it's a significant burden for a community that has already been marginalized and vulnerabilized since I'll go as recent history as COVID times. Back in COVID times, we remember these folks weren't called essential workers at the very beginning of that crisis.
Yeah.
It took a while to get there.
Mhm.
And so in terms of the folks that are being criminalized outside the courthouse right now, it took a while to understand exactly how the lack of due process can affect me. This lack
Right.
of judicial, prudence can affect me. What is it? First they came for the saying, right? And so I
Mm-hmm.
think that's part of it. What we're seeing here,
Mm-hmm.
not to make it dramatic like that, but these are folks that are dealing with a significant amount of hardship, unprecedented. I'm seeing migrants that have been here for decades. They said, "I've never had a court date in my entire life in this country," and I'm
Mm-hmm.
seeing that time and time. And we're talking about grandmas, who are take care of their grandchildren and other folks' children. So it's just kind of sad to see folks that have given so much, that have provided so much, and have kept their nose to the ground, like they've
Mm-hmm.
they've done what they had to do, are dealing with this issue suddenly now.
Mm-hmm. Just horrendous.
One of the things that I see people saying a lot is, they've been here all that time. Why haven't they
Okay.
gotten their citizenship yet? And they can't. Do you want to speak to that a bit, Max?
Yes. So the the immigration process in this country is incredibly cumbersome. And on top of that, as you can imagine, immigration lawyers, which is vital in order to get any application submitted into immigration, are few and far between. Not just that, they cost a lot.
Expensive.
And they are a hot commodity right now. And so to answer your question, like, not only is it cumbersome, but it's not exactly user friendly.
Mm.
And we're talking about folks that not just don't speak the language, but also just generally have many difficulties in which they have to confront, and barriers that we don't necessarily, everyday folks may not necessarily come across, let alone ever think about.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like I said, there are folks who have been in the country for decades and have had a process to probably become either a resident, a legal resident, or a citizen, or provide a visa or asylum. I used to do asylum work at the border. And I could tell you from folks that have followed the rules from outside, when you're applying for asylum, you do it from outside the country. You can wait for your process to be completed inside the country, but you apply for it outside most cases.
Mm.
And I saw them struggle with
Oh
this.
my gosh.
These are talking about folks around my age, Gen Z
Of
folks that
course.
know how to work a phone.
Yeah.
And they themselves were like, I didn't know this is in my language and I'm still not sure what it is I'm doing. So the process can be very, very, very cumbersome.
And this administration has revoked a lot of different
Correct.
countries' asylum, like
Correct.
Myanmar just the other day.
Right.
It goes on and on.
Right. No, Haiti, Venezuela, there are countries that have had certain protections in the last few years that were just stripped, just the rug pulled right under them.
And if these people are sent back to their countries, they could be killed.
Oh, yeah, many cases. Oh, yeah, many cases. This is why that due process is so necessary, not just in the criminal and civil cases, but immigration court. Like, there is something called a red folder. And I believe all citizens should be aware of a red folder is. Migrants, of course, but citizens because you happen to know migrants in your everyday life. And a red folder is basically, it's a know your rights tool. It is a folder that the migrant fills that has every lease they've ever signed, every tax return they've ever applied for or ever gotten, and pretty much every receipt that for anything you've ever paid for, you put in this folder, and it is a folder that is handed to a judge by a lawyer once somebody's disappeared. What I can tell you is that once somebody's disappeared, the chances of a lawyer making a case in front of a judge for your liberation, for not just your liberation but your not deportation, significantly increases if that migrant has a red folder. And
Oh
if they
my
don't,
goodness.
it's just an uphill battle.
Wow.
So it's something folks should be shouting from the rooftops, in my opinion.
Have a red folder, everybody. Have a red folder. So you have every tax return, every
Yeah,
lease you've
and to speak about to underline what you were speaking about, folks that are sent by their home country. Let's say folks who are HIV positive, immigrants who are HIV positive, and there's no access to service providers, social safety net in their country. Should they be deported back to their home country?
God.
This is something, and if that judge didn't know that that person was HIV positive or had the proof about it, then very likely they will be deported. So this is why having a folder filled with this information, so a judge will look at it before they make the determination to remove you from the country, is vital.
Incredibly important. Okay, red folder. A couple more things. We've got a few more minutes, but anybody listening right now, the show is Trevor and Friends, Trevor Crow right now. This is WGCH. I'm talking to Max Cisneros. He is an activist helping his community, and he would like you to get involved.
Yep.
So what are the different ways people can get involved?
And I bet people want to get involved.
Of
They're
course.
just probably looking for ways, avenues to do that. So I mentioned the red folder, raising awareness, big deal, something that, shouting from the rooftops. Also, if folks would like to give, right now it's called the Ark of Noah Fund. And one of the links is available there. I've also allowed my my personal website, Mad Maxican, MADMAXICAN, to redirect to that fund. So what that fund is, a fund that was created specifically for monies to go to the families that have been impacted
Oh,
by
wow.
ICE disappearances.
Great.
So if the father, who happens to be the breadwinner of that family, has been taken away, what does that family do? So Arkanoa was specifically created in order to alleviate the financial hardship. And this economy is not, it's just not it. So a lot of folks are going through different hardships, and Arkanoa was created specifically to
That
impact
is
that family.
fantastic. Now, do you suggest writing postcards, calling your legislators?
Yes, I would.
Both
The
state and
special
federal?
session. Yep, at the state level,
Uh-huh.
the state representatives are going to be considering several different measures in order not just to protect the migrants
Mm-hmm.
who are going to court, but just for judicial process to actually see its day, so
Mm-hmm.
folks actually have their moment in court.
Mm-hmm.
There's that. There's the Connecticut National Guard piece that I mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
that they could urge their state senators, their state reps, to ensure that the Connecticut National Guard is not called up and used for ICE enforcement. There's different ways. I can mention Stanford Norwalk United with Immigrants. I think it's SNUI at CT
Mm-hmm.
on Instagram.
We'll have all this on
Right.
our
They will be
your
providing ways, and because
link in our social media.
correct. Since the last time we had our conversation, I
know.
had to say that
So much has happened.
I've learned so much, and you
great.
gave me so many pointers about how to talk about this stuff.
Oh, I'm so
So I
glad.
appreciate you. Honestly.
So we have just one more
Yeah.
minute, and I think it's important to mention December 1st is an important
Right.
day, and
Yeah.
you just gave me a little.
Red ribbon,
Red
right?
ribbon?
Yes. World AIDS Day is significant for folks, not just throughout the world, but anywhere that's as somebody that is aware of this condition, is aware of folks, that the kind of hardship folks go through in this diagnosis. I'm going to give you three names: Victoria Arellano, trans woman of color, who died in ICE detention in 2007; Joanna Medina, trans woman of color, also died in ICE detention, 2018, I believe. In 2019, Roxana Hernandez died in ICE detention. These are three trans women of color, HIV positive, that were themselves leaders who were organizing the inmates so they can get access to lawyers within the ICE detention.
Oh my goodness, we have to wrap it up. But Max, thank you so much for an incredibly
No,
important
I appreciate you
conversation
for
today.
providing this platform.
Everybody, we will be right back.